Hey everyone, super excited to be here today at the Himalayan Bazaar here in downtown Ann Arbor. It's a beautiful shop with authentic products from Nepal and the Himalayas. And I'm here today with the owners. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
My name is Dorja Sherpa.
Hi, I'm Moni, Mulepati Sherpa.
And not only are they owners of the Himalayan Bazaar, but you also have another business. What is the other business that you do?
It's got adventure travel company called Imperial Expedition. So I lead a trip to Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, Kilimanjaro, and do some hiking around here in instead.
Now, there's rumor that there's a certain famous mountain in the Himalayas that people all over the world know about. What is this mountain? What's the name of it, and why is it special?
Mount Everest.
Okay. And when you were born and growing up, did you call it Mount Everest, or what was the name of the mountain?
We call it Chomolungma in the Sherpa language, but in the Nepali it's called Sagarmatha.
Okay.
And it's well known for Everest anyway.
And why is this mountain so important to you two?
Well, the Mount Everest itself is a kind of, everybody believes is the mother of God on that region. Everybody pray for that. And then at the same time, it's a big economic impact for the Sherpa community because of the Mount Everest, all these people in that region survived and able to make their family end meet kind of things, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I love about you two is you're very modest, but to get to the point, you two are celebrities of Mount Everest.
Thank you.
And why is that?
Well, me and my wife exchanged our wedding vows on top of Everest, and it's in 2005, so it's now been like 18 years.
And before you two getting married on the summit of Mount Everest, had anyone ever done that before?
No, I think we are the only one so far, till now.
So I'm sitting here in the room with the only two people in the history of the world that have ever married on top of Mount Everest. That specifically is super fascinating to me, and I wanted to just learn a little bit more about their journey on how they grew up right near Mount Everest and ended up here in Ann Arbor. So could you please each tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Well, I grew up in a small village, eastern part of Nepal, and my families are kind of subsistent farmers and not have enough support for financially to send their children to school or for better education, but they have enough meat to kind of take care of them. So I went to school for a few years, and when a higher education come up, they couldn't support financially, so I ran away with one of my friends and went to Namche Bazaar, which is a gateway to Mount Everest, and all these climbers, trekkers come through there. And that's how I work in one of the guest house, which is like all these climbers come and they stay overnight there. So that's how I see all these fancy climbers with the climbing gears and backpack, boots, and all these things. So it inspired me to be a climbers. But no one in my families are climbers or anything.
Okay. And what about you? Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Mine is the same way. I was born in Kathmandu, heart of city. It's a city in Kathmandu, and then my parents are in tourism, so I always see these trekkers, climbers staying in our guest house, and I always see them like they travel so much, and I always love to travel. So that's how, like, when I went for my higher studies in Bangkok, I didn't know anything much about Nepal, being a Nepali. And then when we were hosting international night, we have to represent Nepal. And that time I realized, being Nepali, I don't know much about Nepal that time. So when I went back, I heard about this training and all, and that's how I did the training and I met him.
Okay.
So.
And what did Mount Everest mean to you throughout your childhood and as you got older, and then to the point where you decided that, hey, I think I can do this. I want to summit Mount Everest. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Well, for me, I miss being Sherpa family, most of our family members, no one in the climbing industry, but we hear lots of other people that climb Everest and so die people there. But I don't have any intention of climbing Everest when I'm a kid. But when I moved to Namche Bazaar and I started working for that hotel, then seeing all these climbers, and I said, okay, I want to climb one day at least. But it wasn't easy, but we did it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you? When did you first get the idea, or when did you start beginning to think about, hey, it would be pretty cool to get on the mountain and see what happens?
I always love to hike and trek, but being a woman in Nepal, and especially in our ethnic group, they normally don't send women out, and we never go camping and all. And we see brothers going with their friends, but we are not allowed to. So I always wanted to. So once when I got the opportunity through NMA, Nepal Mountaineering Association, and then I just did this female outdoor leadership training, and I loved it. And then since then, I just start taking that course and basic mountaineering, advanced mountaineering course where I met Pem. And then when he started climbing, he tells me a story about it. I loved it, and then like I stepped into this mountaineering, and here the journey went.
Nice. So, where did you two meet? Was it in this advanced mountaineering course, or how did you two meet?
Yeah, during the advanced mountaineering course.
He was taking a course too. I was taking a course, and we became good friends.
Yeah.
Since then.
And how long was the course? How much training do you need to do before you can get high up on the mountain?
Well, the training is 45 days.
That particular training was 45 days.
But you basically you have to take advanced and basic training. This is like after 2000, I think that kind of a requirement. But before that, they will just pick Sherpas based on their strength. Like if they look strong, then you're okay to climb. Yeah.
I see.
But whereas for women, they are trying to encourage women into mountaineering. So luckily that time there were not many women, and I'm also from different ethnic group, so they will always encourage women in this field.
I see. And so were you two from the same ethnic group or religion?
No, we are totally different. I'm Hindu. I was brought up Hindu. He was brought up Buddhist, and we are two different ethnic. I'm Newar, and he is Sherpa.
Okay.
That's why we have to get married on top of Everest, because our parents will not agree on our decision, I believe.
Yeah. So I remember actually sitting in my office. What year was it that you two got? It was 2005.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was actually sitting in my office in Miami, and when I launched my immigration career, I was working for a nonprofit, and I remember reading BBC News about this couple that got married on top of Mount Everest. And it actually talked that you two were considered by many heroes around the world. And a big reason, my understanding, is because you two came from different cultures, different religions. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and what the journey was before and the journey after you got married on top of that mountain?
Well, it's like we are kind of intercaste marriage, and it's a huge deal in Nepal because intercaste marriage are kind of picking up that time, and then this is a huge Maoist revolution, civil war in the country. It's all about like ethnicity, and then that's kind of picking up at the same time. And even during when we're fall in love with each other and we're meeting each other and with the family and friends, there are the Maoist government is kind of coming on a power, and they are actually giving money to people if they do an intercaste marriage. So we are making a joke, maybe we should get married and claim that prize or something. But and it's a hard because the culturally different, and her family and my family. I'm from village and she's from city, so I don't think there is any way that we can do arranged marriage in that sense. So that's why we kind of decide something different.
Yeah. And so go ahead. Did you want to say something?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
What inspired you to get married on top of Mount Everest?
Because it was not possible if in our culture, like we normally do arranged marriage, and my mom is very typical Newar, and there's no way that like if I tell my parents that I want to marry him, they will say okay, fine. So, and another thing is I just don't want to run away from home and marry him. So it was his plan. So if we could success climbing Everest, then we can marry that. That way, maybe because of the name and fame, maybe our parents will accept us. So for me, rather than that, like I just don't want to like what you call, like I don't want to upset my parents, you know. So I think, and that came to like after summit, they were so happy that they forget us, and then they loved him, they liked him. His nature is very nice, like he's very friendly, like they love him, but just with the ethnic group and all these things, they don't agree.
Yeah, and for on this journey up the mountain, your parents were probably pretty afraid for your safety. I mean, my understanding is Everest every year kills people when they attempt to climb. How did your parents feel just about your physical safety when you told them like, "Hey, I want to get to the top of that mountain"? What was their reaction?
Well, her parents must be really worried, and they talk almost every day. But my parents, I kind of left my parents when I was age of 12, and then we do have a little bit of communication, but not much because we don't have a cell phone that time or a Facebook Messenger or anything. So there is not much communication, and they don't even know what I'm doing for years.
Yeah.
And after 2-3 years, I go back home, and they're happy that I come home safely.
Yeah.
But they don't know what actually I'm doing out of home. So I don't know how much worried they're gonna be, but there is not much of information that I'm climbing Everest or I'm doing all this crazy stuff. Yeah.
And what about you? Did your parents know that you were going to try to
Oh
summit?
yes, it was actually through Rotary we did, and my dad used to be a Rotarian.
Okay.
So yes, the Rotary Club in Nepal, in Kathmandu, they organized all this, and my dad was one of the team, was also in one of team, and my mom was the most. She always try, why you're doing this? Why? What happens if you do this? Like, do you really need to do this? So, you know, like a lot. And then even when I was climbing, she's doing a lot of puja. That is like she goes to temple, light the candle, pray God, and whatever she can.
Yeah. So, who proposed the idea of getting married on top of Mount Everest?
It was him actually, because he always wanted to marry first, so he always proposed to me, but I'm the one like, just we'll see, because I have a dream of climbing Everest. So I said like, if we could summit, then that's a good idea. And that way, like, you know, our parents will accept us and they'll be happy too, so.
Nice. And so can you talk us through when you got up to the summit of the mountain, what type of emotions did you feel at the top of Mount Everest?
Well, while we are climbing, there are lots of risk factors, and you wake up in the morning and you start climbing, you kind of worried, oh, hopefully you come back safely. That's kind of happened few days, but once you get used to it there, you don't really care. Like, okay, this is my job and I'm going there. But technically, I mean, all the Khumbu ice fall part is much riskier, and then it's kind of out of your control, because if something happens, it's happened. You can't really do anything. But once you pass that, like Camp 2, most of the accident happen because of people ignorance or something they do stupid. So you can able to control if you are technically capable to things like that. And so when you get to the summit, basically some people get a little excited, oh, I'm on a summit, happy to be here, but people don't have, this is my experience. I think different people will have a different experience, but wow, what a beautiful view, but your mind is not that active. You're almost like you had some gummies or beer or overdrink, that you're kind of dull, and then it's nice scenery, but you don't get much of reaction. Yeah. It might say, ooh,
You're at that time, I think you're so tired, because I think walking like 36 hours or something like that, you're just completely like, you know, because you have like that focus, I have to climb Everest, I am on the top, and you're happy at the same time. But again, there is another risk factor, like, will I go be down safely? So there are a lot of things, and I don't think you have that, you are in that mind that you can think about.
Yes. And so you're describing, it's almost kind of like an altered state of consciousness, I assume, due to the exhaustion, the lack of oxygen, lack of sleep. Yeah, how much sleep did you get in the 48 hours up to the summit?
Barely, 2-3 hours.
Well, between like when you go from Camp 2, all these climbers will go to Camp 3 and sleep overnight there. There is this whole expedition is kind of running two different segment. One is the Sherpa's way of climbing, and then foreigners, the client that who pays $60,000 to climb Everest will have a little slightly different schedule. The climbing Sherpas working on that part has a different schedule. So all the paid climbers will go from base camp to Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, summit, back to Camp 4, and then Sherpas are going from base camp to Camp 2, Camp 2 to Camp 4, and then goes to summit. So Sherpas are not sleeping that enough, maybe because they wake up around like 3-4 a.m. They go to Camp 4. Some stronger Sherpas reach Camp 4 quicker, but the weaker Sherpas reach Camp 4 late, like 6 p.m., 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. And then they take like 2-hour rest, have some noodle soup or something, hot water. And then around 8 or 9 p.m. they take off for the summit. And then they go all the way, they climb all night, and the next morning around 9 or 10 they will summit Everest. And then maybe spend a 10-15 minutes and take a picture, and they need to come back all the way down to Camp 4.
Yeah.
So this is almost like a little over 36 hours, back and forth. And some stronger climbers, Sherpas, even try to come down all the way to Camp 2. So
yeah, and growing up, I've always been fascinated with Mount Everest, and I'd periodically hear in the news about rich or famous people summiting Mount Everest, but what I never really heard about was the perspective of the Sherpas and the Sherpas climbing the mountain. Can you tell us a little bit about what life is like as a Sherpa? Like how many times? My understanding is the people who pay like $60,000, they just go up the mountain and come back down. But don't Sherpas, have to set the lines? Oftentimes there's going up and down. I guess over the course of a season, powerful, strong Sherpa, like how many times are they going up and down? Or could you tell us a little bit about the schedule of the Sherpa from the Sherpa perspective?
There are like two ways though. Even in a Sherpa team, there is a main guide, and then all the other Sherpas, and then leaders and all kind of things involved there. But like a paid climbers will be going to Camp 1, Camp 2, and Camp 3 halfway and come back. That's part of the climatization. And during the whole summit expedition, they may just cross like 2 or 3 times through that Khumbu ice fall. But the climbing Sherpas, they need to basically almost go there every day, because they wake up around 3 or 2 a.m. and then take all the load, whatever they can. And then also load is based on the weight they pay, and if you're able to carry 40 kilo, you get double paid. The standard is 20 kilo, you're supposed to carry 20 kilo. But some stronger climbers carry like 60 kilo, they pay 3 times.
Wow.
So it's depend on who you're talking to. Everybody have a different experience, but normally people carry like double load because they go there, they don't want to like come back every day and just do this 20 kilo things. So they try to take everything up to Camp 2, Camp 1, and then set up Camp 1 for the client to come up there, and then take everything to Camp 2 and set up Camp 2, and then client will come there and spend a few nights. So this Sherpa team and client will go on a different schedule. Some of the time they meet at the base camp, but they don't really see all of them at the Camp 2, base camp, Camp 1, and these places, because they will have only the cook or some assistant cook will dare to cook food for the members. And I think basically during the whole expedition of maybe 45 or 60 days, Sherpas will cross that ice fall at least more than 30 days. And client will barely maybe cross like 4 or 5 times maybe.
Okay. But that's the most dangerous part of Everest in terms of but the majority of people that die on Everest die on that part of the mountain? Or can you tell us a little bit about this?
Right. I mean, Khumbu ice fall is, for me, Khumbu ice fall will be the most dangerous part on Everest because it's beyond your control.
Okay.
No matter how experienced climbers you are, how technical climbers you are, if the ice chunk gonna fall above you, you don't know that, right? It's almost like hit by earthquake or something,
Yeah.
you can't really do anything. But if you go beyond that Khumbu icefall, most things are technical. I mean, it's climbing. If you put a proper rope or proper gears or safety, you can able to prevent those accidents,
Okay.
and you can able to save yourself. But Khumbu icefall, no matter what you do, you can't really. If you need to die there, you're gonna die.
And with the Kumba icefall, my understanding is it's constantly moving. Like I've heard that it can move up to like a foot or a meter per day because it's a glacier, right?
Yeah, it's almost river kind of moving. June, July, maybe it's melting. It's moving much faster, but October, November, it's freeze, so less moving. And it's interesting. Some of those things that we saw during some of the cleaning expedition is that there are some Italian helicopter crash on a Camp 2, like back in 1995 or sometime. All this trash came down to base camp now. So as compared to that, it's moving quite faster actually. Yeah.
Okay. And did either of you have any moments when you were on the mountain that you thought you might die or that you were scared for your life?
A lot of time. I think 2 times for me.
Yeah, and can you tell me about those 2 times?
I was in Juniper, I think, when I was no, the first was in Icefall. Everybody crossed, and then it was a long ladder, 8 ladders crossed. Suddenly, the big chunk of ice fell down, and it was like a earthquake, and I was alone all by there, and I was shaking. And I don't know, because everybody up there, they reach there and they run, and I was the only one there.
And were you on the ladder when this occurred, or you?
I was about to step on the ladder, and suddenly, the whole chunk fell down right in front of me.
Oh my gosh.
And then the other second incident was when I was about to step with my crampon on, that whole chunk fell down. And luckily, I just put it back. And then the third one, I slipped almost 10 feet, I think, from down. And then nobody was there. I was on my rope, alone.
Okay.
So I was twisted, so I can't even turn back. So luckily, I don't know who's that guy, one foreigner was climbing, and I think he heard me and he flipped the rope, and then I was saved.
Wow.
Things happen, so that's why there were 3 dangerous moments, I think. I would never forget in my life.
What about for you? Did you ever have any moments on the mountain where you thought you might not make it through, or?
There are few of them. I think, some of the time there is I think interesting part is that one is, I still remember there is a guy from, I don't know, maybe somewhere in Utah or some place. We all at the Camp 2, and then they packed everything and they went down, and we came down. We are not in a same group, but we are different groups. So we came down, and I made few friends at the Camp 1, and then we stayed there. I think one of my friends actually got a can beer, and we shared that, and we wait for a little bit, but this guy keep going, and then we finished that beer, and we're talking and making jokes, and we're coming down. And coming down is my favorite part because you're kind of sliding down, and it's you'll be so quick get best camp.
You always do that.
And then that time this guy left maybe 10 minutes or 8-10 minutes ahead of us, and he died. He fell in crevice and he died. And we're feel so lucky that we stopped for this conversation and beer, because things save your life. If we are with him, we may all gonna die, because it's just a little piece of, they made a safety anchor, and then the piece of chunk of ice fell down, and this guy got into the crevice and died. So some of those, there are few minor accidents that happen.
We were saved in Camp 1 too, I forgot that. Remember, we are supposed to sleep in Camp 1, and we reached there early, and we said why don't we just rest in Camp 2? So we didn't, instead of resting in Camp 1, we went to Camp 2. And then that night, whole Camp 1 was swept away.
With the avalanche, or?
With
Yes.
the avalanche.
Wow.
And then our leader, everybody thought we were in that accident too. But luckily, we could have a conversation that we reached Camp 2.
Wow.
And then we were saved that time.
Yeah, there were some Poland climbers
Polish
and
guy.
few other people got into that avalanche. And it's interestingly that the Polish guy didn't had a permit. He just climbed illegally. So they cut him because of that avalanche.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
then we all rushed for rescue, like,
Yeah.
and then that's how we found out people.
Oh wow.
But luckily we were saved.
Yeah.
But,
Now, did you hear the avalanche, or is it like a common occurrence that you hear avalanche, or that you hear like ice falling, especially going through the waterfall? Like, how often is it that you hear like cracking of ice or something that kind of startles your consciousness?
Well, you do hear, most of the avalanche is not gonna happen right at the spot, so it's coming from a little further away. So you do hear those things, but it's the only concern is whether you have a space to run or not, whether you can run faster than that avalanche. But otherwise, some of the people saying that at the Camp 1 avalanche during our expedition, the avalanche came from far away, and this guy came and tried to take picture and hit the eye with the avalanche on camera, so his eye is like swollen this big. So everybody's making a joke, after if someone tried to take an avalanche picture,
Yeah.
people start making jokes. So there are some accidents that way. And then worst accident we had is the helicopter crash, because after we finish our expedition, they send us this huge Mi-17 Russian helicopter, and it's got crashed right in front of us. So that moment is one of the worst for us, I think.
Because when it was landing, because it was my first helicopter ride, and I told him, I think the symptom is not right. And they were joking at me, because you never rode a helicopter, that's why you're thinking. I said, like, no, I just feel that vibe, something is wrong. And I didn't even finish my sentence, and it just crashed, and they said run, and then we all three run in 3 different directions. Luckily, we were saved, but his bag was chopped into 3 pieces right there. We threw the bags, everything, and we just run.
No, there is a tiny helipad that built for the whole expedition team, and what happened is every time the heli is coming, they all take the backpack to the helipad. So it's easy to load, right? So we kept all our backpack at the helipad, but we are waiting maybe like 15, 20 feet away from the helipad because of all the dust flying. And luckily, it just got over the backpack and chopped them, but nothing happened to people. But the rotors and all these things fly over all like 50, 60 meters away from our campsite.
So how close were you to the helicopter when it crashed?
Right around here, because they were
10-15 feet.
10-15 feet?
Because they are supposed to take a video, and they said like, you step first. So that's why I was right there, and then I was just, I don't know, for some reason I was saying like the vibe is not good, and they were just teasing me all the time. And luckily, like when it happened, luckily we had a big rock in front, like so we could run away, and then we are backside of the rock. So
one of my friend taking a video, and you see that I'm like taking picture and then run away in that video.
So
and everybody's just scrambling.
Did the people in the helicopter survive, or did they die?
Okay. They all.
Yeah, they survived. It's just a minor minor issues for them, and then we immediately walked them back like 2 hours down and got another helicopter and flew them back. So because they could get an altitude sickness because they came from the low level.
And for me, I am scared of heights, but I love like roller coasters, and probably my scariest experience in life with regards to high altitude was I was in Las Vegas at the Stratosphere. It's about 1,000 feet, and they hooked me up to a cord, and I walked out. What scared me the most was the wind when I was that up high, and the wind was just terrifying. Once I actually jumped off, I was connected. I went from like super scared adrenaline to actually like very calm when I was in the air coming down. But how was the wind on Everest, or what elements of Everest really caused fear for when you're on the mountain?
Well, I only had one experience. Is I think maybe like 60 miles per hour or 70 miles per hour one time at a Camp 1, and you can't really hold your tent. So what we do is, if we have 5 or 6 people, we all come and sit in one tent, not spreading out in a different tent. So we all sit in one tent, and hopefully you are gonna survive. But that's the whole thing. And most of the time is that if that kind of situation, you're gonna feel like you're gonna kind of give up everything. Oh, I think we're gonna die here, and just relax, There's
Yes.
not much you can do. So there are few occasions that I had that
And
experience.
even when we were coming down from summit, the visibility was zero. You can't even see from this distance. So it was right in the ridge. If they flew, the wind will fly. You'll be either in Tibet or the site is Nepal. So we were right walking in the ridge. So we have to kneel down and wait for a few minutes there because the wind was so hard you can't even see anything and you can walk.
And so when is the climbing season on Mount Everest? What month?
March, April, May is one of the spring season is one of the best season.
Okay.
There are few expedition in autumn, like fall season.
Yep.
But not much of success rate. I think because of too much soft snow that it's having a hard time to make a trail.
Yeah.
So spring season is one of the best.
And why is it that so many people try to climb during the spring season versus in the winter or other months?
Well, in spring you have more chances to success because I think 80% or 90% of success is in the spring.
And why is that? Is that because of the wind?
Because of the weather.
Weather, okay.
Yeah, better weather and then less snow on a mountain.
Okay.
It's easier to open a track and it's overall is the best weather. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And out of, I consistently every year hear about, these traffic jams recently the past few years on the top of Mount Everest. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's going on Mount Everest with regards to?
Right now, I think more and more people climbing because of is there like Everest, everybody. Like back days, I think there is some Americans, some Canadian country people are coming to climb Everest, like British, But nowadays, is the whole world is trying to climb Everest, like Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Indonesia, all these Asian countries that never came into climbing industry, they are all coming into climbing industry. Like India is a huge now. Chinese are big, and so I think this crowd is getting bigger and bigger in the future, and hopefully the government will have some kind of a limit number. But even back days, like there are huge climbing teams, and people don't get really exposed in the media, or people not able to take a good picture from drone or something to show all this image. But I think nowadays people have access to all this different technology, so things are getting more exciting, interesting, and challenging.
Yeah, I remember seeing a photo a couple of years ago, and it looked like there was literally like hundreds of people just in line right near the summit of Mount Everest.
Right. Yeah, and it's an interesting part is that there is a weather report coming from different countries, and they all kind of gather and check this weather report, and everybody say, okay, the May 16 is the best weather day, and everybody trying to go that day. But there are some, maybe the bigger group will kind of switch different date because they know that it's going to be crowded. But most of the smaller group try to follow other people because they don't want to go by themselves. The small group not able to manage everything by themselves, so they try to follow other people. That's why all this crowd gonna end up there. But if you go with some big companies, I think they will. If everybody's trying to go on a May 16, they might say, "Oh, we're gonna go on a 18 because it's gonna be crowded." So nowadays, because of the science, technology, all these things, they are trying to manage in a different way and more safely climbing.
And once you're up into the what is it, the death zone, or what is it called?
Yeah, death zone.
And where does the death zone begin? What altitude?
Camp 4.
Camp 4 and altitude?
26,000 feet.
26,000.
Yeah.
So what's the most technical, challenging aspect of the mountain in terms of climbing once you get into the death zone? Is there a certain part of the climb that's difficult?
Well, for Everest, if once you go over death zone, it's just people's body start dying and not have enough energy or oxygen. But technically, it's not technical. It's just walking.
Okay.
Like big Camp 4 is maybe like big field, rocky field. You walk around.
And that was harder too. Walking with the crampons on, you can't take the crampons off. So the crampon is always on.
Yeah.
I think just for the record, maybe somebody gonna start up playing football there someday. It's just a big field there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then up from the Camp 4 to the summit is basically, it's not that technical. You see half dome climbing and all
Yeah.
these things. Those are way scary for me than climbing Everest. But it's just altitude makes your body more challenging. I think, yeah.
And what do you do? Let's say you're feeling good, you're feeling strong, and you're up in the death zone, and there's a person that's moving pretty slow. Like, do you have to unhook from the rope, or how do you get past that person?
Well, basically you unhook from your rope and then you pass him, and few accident happened that time because people accidentally slip and then they don't have a safety rope. That's how they killed. But most of the time that's only one way. And we technically like hold that guy at the same time, just unhook and catch this guy and cross over. Okay. And then left him behind, and he's okay with that, and he knows, yeah.
And are you typically, do you have a safety rope when you're unhooking? Okay.
Yeah, but you will have a ascender and you'll have a carabiner safety rope. So 2 safety rope, basically people use it, 2 of them, yeah.
And is that what's the problem with these traffic jams? It gets really difficult to pass the people?
That's right. When you get if you get to the South Summit or like a Hillary Step, those are the places that you can't really pass other people because of the so narrow space. So that's how kind of people is stuck there.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the Hillary Step. What is the Hillary Step and why is it famous?
Well, while we're climbing in 2005, it's a little big piece of chunk of rock that there, and then.
And where's it located?
It's right between South Summit and then Summit.
Okay.
So, and it's once you get tired and you are not have enough energy and you're about to this summit, and then you got this big rock, right? That's give you a whole bunch of challenge to cross that and go over that. So I think that's about it. It's not like something that you have to be, wow, I cannot do an Hillary Step. It's just piece of, after you come all the way there, it's just a piece of rock that's gonna bother you.
It is just a twist. I think like you can see Camp 2 from there, and like if you're scared with height, you can see it. If you fall down, then you're straight into Camp 2. That turning was harder, like not harder, but like scariest when you see down, and your backpack sometimes it touches there, so it's harder to turn around.
I see.
And people or other climbers that knew talking that the 2015 earthquake, that piece is gone now, so it's much easier.
Oh wow, okay. So, but in my understanding too, that's part of the cause of the traffic jam up on Mount Everest, because it's much harder to pass people, and
that's
so
right,
someone gets
it's
like stuck there or is slow to get through there.
Yeah, it's a narrow space and you can't really go because it's clipped both sides and it's a piece of rock, so you have to kind of wait. And it's, for some people it's really hard because you have a crampon on it, and the crampon is not gonna stick on a rock.
Yeah.
So you basically have to push by your hand to your body to cross that.
Okay.
And that's how it's more challenging for people trying to use their leg, but the crampon not gonna stick on a rock. So
I see.
That's the hardest part, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't have energy also, so they are slow. So that slowness, then the people at the back, they get slower and slower.
Yeah. So presuming you're not stuck in a traffic jam, once you make it past the Hillary Step, how much time does it take from the Hillary Step to actually get up to the summit for someone like you?
Well, 10 minutes to maybe hour.
Okay.
Depend on the people. If you are strong enough, you can do that Hillary. Once you cross the Hillary Step, summit is only 10 minutes away.
You can see it right there. It seems like it's right there, but when you start walking,
But for some people, it may take an hour. Like that, it's a whole thing is different. I mean, any interview that you hear on a TV or newspaper is all depend on a personal experience, right? And if you want to go climb Everest, I think you should not listen all this individual experience, because your experience will be different.
Yeah.
You may feel like, oh, Everest was easy for me, right?
No, everybody most of them I've seen, after they climb Everest, it's harder, but it's very easy. I said no, when you are there, you've been through that, but when you come down, you forget all that, okay. It is harder there, no matter how strong you are, it's hard for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think there is we are humans, so it's not easy, just go and come back, walking right here. Even just summit, you can see it right there, but just to reach there, it's just it takes a lot of energy there.
Yeah. And also, most people have oxygen tanks, right?
Yeah.
That they're bringing with them once they get up higher up on the mountain and in the death zone. So you'd be limited in the amount of time that you have to get up to the summit and come back down to the next camp in terms of like exchanging oxygen tanks, correct?
Right. Well, the Sherpas are getting a 3 tank of oxygen. That's kind of industry standard that Sherpas will get 3 tank. That's from Camp 4 to summit and come back to Camp 4. And some Sherpas are strong enough that they don't use that oxygen and they bring it back and sell it them and make it turn into money. But for the foreigner paying client, it's depend on how much money they are paying. So, but the agency, the company standard, they get maybe like 5 bottles of oxygen. But if you are paying more money, you can get 10 bottles of oxygen. And some people, you start using oxygen from Camp 2, and some people you start using from Camp 4. So for the paying client, there is not much of set rule, because I saw that one climber from, I think it's from Japan or somewhere, it's trying to climb Everest at the age of 80. He's using oxygen from like 8,000 feet.
Yeah.
It's like Lukla, which is where you land and you start using oxygen and going to climb Everest. So if you have money, I think you can challenge anyway.
Yeah.
Do it.
Now, were either of you ever worried about the levels of oxygen in your tank when you're on the mountain? And you've done Everest 2 times, right?
2 times, yeah.
How many times have you climbed?
That was my first time, and I've done only once.
Okay.
But I've climbed other small peaks.
Okay.
We did had an issue with oxygen because of Moni got a frostbite, snow blind on our way down from summit. We had a really bad weather between South Summit and Camp 4, and she took her goggle out.
Yes,
right?
because we have to reach South Summit.
Yeah.
South Summit as soon as possible, and the visibility was 0. I couldn't see anything, and wiping and all, it was just frustrating. I was already tired, so what I did was I just took my goggles out and I just walked like that. And by the time I'm in Camp 4, I was completely blind.
Wow.
So I couldn't see anything. I didn't know, like I just said, like, why it's so dark? Why did you turn the light off? I said, like, the lamp is on. And I got so scared. I was burning. Luckily, we always say he's a doctor there in the camp. He always, even now, you can see always in his backpack, there's like all kind of medicine there. So like we had a doctor in base camp, so they talked with them and what medicine should we give. And luckily, by next day I could see. That was my scariest moment. I thought I'll be blind forever.
Oh my
I
goodness.
experienced for 8 hours.
So how high on the mountain were you when you got snow blind?
Camp 4.
Well, it started from South Summit on the way down from Summit.
But I can
Okay.
see till then. But by the time I reached Camp 4, I was completely blind.
Okay. And so how does that work? Are you just walking by, like how do you know where to put your feet when there's like zero
No, no.
visibility?
Well,
No,
He's
we were
resting
resting.
there.
We
Oh,
were
okay,
resting.
you were resting
So
when
I
it
was
happened.
resting. So I was in Camp 4. So now, like to go down, it was more
Yeah.
worryful now
I
because
see.
like when I was in Camp 4, I was fine. But that
Yeah.
time I got blind, and then that's how it got delayed. Like we were just thinking, like how should we go down? Luckily, with medicine, some rest, I start seeing things, but still it burns. It was burning and it was very hard. So yeah.
And
Wow.
that's the time that we are out of oxygen, and it's on Camp 4, so we have to have some oxygen. So we did ask some of our friends, and they donate oxygen at Camp 4.
Wow.
So.
That's why Sherpas, they are very good in heart. Always
Yeah.
they have a big heart. That's why I always say they are very helpful up there.
Yeah.
Without them, I don't think we could do it. That's why I always say, and it's a teamwork too. And luckily I was blessed, we had a good team, and all the Sherpas there, they treat us like a brother and sisters. So sometimes, like, I'm very picky about the food. We always go to other camp and they invite us, because we are a small team.
Yeah.
And if we have any problem, they talk in the different groups and they'll figure it out and they'll manage.
Nice.
So that's why it's always the team.
Yeah. Now, did you ever see any, I mean, this is a little bit of a morbid question, but did you ever see dead bodies when you're climbing up and down Mount Everest?
We have to cross the dead body that time we did 2 or 3 bodies. I didn't know, I thought like they were resting.
Yeah.
They were resting. I didn't know it was dead. And then like they were just teasing me, like, because I thought like some bodies, we thought they were resting. And then I was thinking why they're resting. No, there's dead bodies. So
You just leave it there.
sometimes we even pull them, and it was on the road. We pull them and we keep it aside so that people can walk.
Wow. And what's that like? What's that experience like? You know, when you are walking by a dead person on the mountain.
You don't have that energy to think about anything. I think that happened to me. I just like, I was so tired and all. I just want to like, where's your focus? Like, okay, your step, you have to be there in Camp 4 by this time. So I always think, okay, I have to make it up to there. That's it. Nothing else. I
Well,
don't.
yeah, many climbers give up after seeing them. You know, they don't go back to climb because it's most of them will. I mean, we talk when we're that's a issues because the back days the climbers when they leave for, they go for climbing Everest, they most of them they think that they're gonna die maybe, so they drink a lot, and then after they come back they celebrate, oh we're successful, no one dies, so they drink a lot and they don't. I mean, back days the climber really didn't save much money. But nowadays, climbing are more like a sport. So the young climbers are more like they took training. They are well prepared for the climbing, and they know this is a sport that everybody's doing. I'm not going there for dying. So things are picking much more like professional way. So it's getting better nowadays. But back days, I believe it's even like 1999, 2000. I see lots of celebration before going and huge celebration after coming down. And it's really good for the local economy because they're able to sell all this booze and people make money. But nowadays, most of these young climbers, they don't drink because alcohol is not good for climbing, right? So things are changing. So become more professional, even the Sherpa community guides.
Yeah, and I would imagine too the technology is getting better each year in terms of weather forecasting, because it sounds like weather is one of the biggest factors in terms of whether you're going to die on the mountain or not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, weather and then all the, as we said, all the
technical gears
that came out.
So the technology is getting a lot better. The training.
Much more lightweight and everything. You know, back days people carry so heavy equipment and all those things. So.
And I think my time, like I couldn't find my right size shoes too, so I got one size bigger, and that's why I have to wear like 4 socks.
Yeah. Now, I would assume it's still much more dangerous for Sherpas on the mountain than it is for the paid climbers, because there just is not enough resources. The Sherpas are taking a lot more risk, for example, going through the ice fall more times. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's definitely more risk for them because it's going through that ice fall more timing. It's one of the huge risks. And other thing is that they're gonna set up the rope on a fixed rope on a kind of fresh snow. So that's more riskier anyway. And even physically, they are much more, they need to carry like 40-50 pound load and go up and down. And I like, young climbers, some of the young climbers I see, because it's an interesting kind of like, this is a more like an inside Sherpa community. They have to compete, like who is more stronger. You have to kind of show up a little bit. And some people takes 4 hours to reach Camp 2, take it easy, but this someone fresh blood comes and try to do it in 2 hours with 40 kilos of load. And then the older one will kind of encourage them not to do too crazy because your lungs get bad after a few days and they start coughing blood and go back home.
Yeah.
We saw lots of young fresh blood that has that kind of attitude, like they would show up and climb strong, and then after a few days somehow they get really bad sick or some kind of infection or something from the cold here, I think. So just take it easy, and climbing is more safe way to do it. And then the older climbers knows that even they don't have a technical part, they knows how to play with the mountain.
Yeah.
The younger ones are really technical and advanced on climbing, but they don't have much of that,
the wisdom
part.
Yeah. So have either of you lost any friends on the mountain or known any people that have died on the mountain?
That time or now?
Just at any point in your life?
Oh yeah, quite a lot.
Quite a lot?
That's why we wanna, that's why many climber wants to escape out from the industry.
Yeah.
Because lots of them, their families not sending them back to climbing because so many people are dying, and lots of them they don't want to go back because it's not easy and not safe.
Yeah.
So it's all end up in the U.S. now. Most of the climbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, how does that affect you? I mean, is it just part of life being a Sherpa and knowing that many of your friends, you know, that's their livelihoods, that's where the money is at, that's what they need to do to survive and, you know, literally take care of their families?
Well, I mean, there are new young people that are coming and doing the same thing, climbing, and it's a good thing that the older climbers are retiring and giving them chance. So I don't think there will be the lack of Sherpas in Nepal, no matter how many of them retire or go abroad. But one sense is that if more become professional and more advanced among those younger climbers, I think it will be more safer for anybody.
Yeah.
And those days, I think only Sherpas used to be in this field, but these days, different ethnic groups are stepping forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and can you tell me a little bit more about the Sherpa as an ethnic group? Like, what is a Sherpa? What is the Sherpa ethnic group? And
I think, well, Sherpas are, you know, we are kind of migrate from Mongolia, Tibet, and then back into Nepal. So the earliest days, the Sherpas moved into Nepal. They came down valleys because they are trying to find a better soil for farming and all these things. And they came down and mixed with more kind of lower land people. And then there is some of the Sherpas that maybe recently moved, not recently, but maybe 100 years back or so moved. They didn't come all the way down. And then as soon as the expedition, like 1953, I think the people who start climbing Everest, they kind of stuck there. And then tourism industry become a huge industry, and then that region people made lots of money, becomes wealthy in sense. But those people who moved earliest, they came down for better farming. They didn't do that good.
Yes.
But Sherpa
these are all moved from Tibet, yeah.
But Sherpa is actually ethnic, like the surname.
Okay.
Yeah.
But after Sir Edmund Hillary climbed with Tenzing Norgay Sherpa became like a title.
Yeah.
So that's how like people think Sherpa means climber. Yes, they are, but like not all Sherpas are like climb Everest or like, you know, it's just like a regular surname. Like.
Okay, so Sherpa is actually in essence like a last name.
Last name, yeah.
Like
what's your last name?
Sherpa, Pem Sherpa, but I think it's more like a fisherman here. Like, you know, lots of people have a fisherman name, but it's not technically they're gonna fish every day.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
The Sherpas are the same, but as Moni said, like it's become a title after Sir Edmund Hillary climbed Everest, and everybody thinks that Sherpas is climbers or porters on Everest, but technically not. Yeah, it's a more like ethnic group that live on that region of the.
Yeah, and so they're like mountain communities of Sherpas that live right near Everest.
Everest, and it's not technically Everest. I mean, it's even other part of the area, but it's close to mountain.
Okay.
And they are saying maybe over 300,000 people, but maybe more now.
Okay, and it's also a language, correct?
Yeah, we do speak a little slightly different language. Our language is more into Tibetan language. It's like Moni speak is Newari.
There are like so many different languages in Nepal, but our national language is Nepali.
Okay.
So official language is Nepali.
Okay.
But you have different dialects. So.
Okay, so are there different dialects too of Sherpa?
Yeah.
Yes, Sherpa have different. When I talk with my parents, there's different. When he talks with his parents, it's different. And they're like all different. There are like so many different.
And it's so like it's a mountain community, and it's so landlocked. There is not easy access between people in a community. So our Sherpa community on one area will speak slightly different language, and then other area of Sherpas. So some of the like area Sherpas we don't understand. Even we speak same language, it's completely different. So like people Namche will speak a little slightly different language than people in our village.
Okay.
And it's have a little similar tune, but they kind of slightly change it, so it's hard to understand.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Now, is there like a written language? I mean, can you write in Sherpa or read in Sherpa?
Well,
Or?
I think there is a written
There's a
script in
script.
Sherpa, but we never taught like teach in English school or anywhere. So it's all just verbally.
So most of it's
Yeah.
pretty much all
Yeah.
passed down from generation
Right,
to
yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
Through.
And then it's keep kind of mixing up and changing and a little bit. So there is no written script or anything.
Okay. And do you speak to your children, or what languages do you speak to your children in?
I speak mostly Nepali.
Nepali, like they are
Nepali.
fluent in Nepali,
Okay.
but like I know I am not that fluent in my dialogues too. So that I normally when they go to Nepal, sometimes they understand what my mom and dad is talking, but they don't understand what they mean to.
I
And
see.
same thing with Sherpa.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's hard to train them with so many different languages. So we thought maybe just they speak Nepali in general. So
Yeah. So, I mean, both of you are fluent in English, and I learned Spanish as a second language as an adult, and it was probably the hardest thing that I ever did in my life, way harder than law school for sure. Tell me a little bit about your experience learning English.
well, it's really challenging. I mean, I'm still not fluent and I'm still struggling and try to learn more. But just being with a friend, all these people come on a trekking. I mean, I had a good friend here, Heather Anil, that she comes on a trek and then I teach her English and Nepali and she teach me English.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really helped me improve because she spent a few years in Nepal and she know a little bit Nepali and she want to improve that. And then so we go for like 3-week, 4-week trips, and then all this extra time we try to learn each other. So that helped improve my English a lot at one
Yeah.
point, yeah. And then basically talking to different people. So.
Yeah. And how was your experience learning English?
I learned English in school. Luckily, I was blessed. I could go to a boarding school, and then my dad used to run work in tourism, so I used to help when I can.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
but still, like nowadays, like this all new vocabulary and everything, our kids are teaching us. Mom, you should say this way. You should. So we have 2 daughters, and luckily, like the little one, she is the one like said, Papa, you have to do it this way. Mama, you have to do this way. So
Even like when I'm typing something and she's looking from behind and she correct me like, don't do that, don't do
yeah,
that.
that's not correct way, Papa. This is
Yeah.
the way. So
Yeah. So what brought you to Ann Arbor?
Well, mostly friend connection. I mean, there are a little longer story is that we moved to Colorado,
yeah.
and then I was a part of the project that hiked from New Mexico to Canada on Continental Divide. It's a 3,100-mile trail, and my good hiking friend Matt Messon, he initiated that project, and he wants to hike from New Mexico to Canada. So I was part of it, and then he helped get my green card during that project. So he sponsored me to do that, and then I hiked 4 years on Continental Divide. Maybe 2-3 months on a trail, and then come back. Same time I go back and forth and do some trips in Nepal. And around 2011, we finished that project, and I was looking for a job to do something. And then it's interestingly, I think US is just coming out of recession. I didn't even know that, so I couldn't find a job there easily. And then I talked to my friend Heather here, who runs this kind of things from her garage. And she said, I said, maybe we can make this garage store into a shop on a downtown. And she said, okay, yeah, why not we do that? So we came here and opened these things, yeah. And we kind of been stuck here.
So how long has this store been open here in Ann Arbor?
Since 2011.
2011?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, my wife Moni runs most of the things, and I do the climbing part, yeah, go back and do the trips twice a year.
And so people, you also lead excursions back to Nepal and through, for example, I know you've talked about going to Everest, taking people to Everest Base Camp. And so anyone who's watching this video, if you're interested, they could actually contact you and potentially sign up for an expedition to go explore, maybe not necessarily summit Mount Everest, but
yeah. I mean, we do run any kind of trip, so we do mostly go to Everest Base Camp. It's a regular trekking, is one of the popular one.
yeah.
Or any part of the Nepal. We do a few days trips in Bhutan and a few days in Tibet. Tibet is technically open, but it's not many people is still going there because
Yeah.
of all the legal issues. And I mean, U.S. issues a warning that not to go to China, so that's maybe more. Not many people going to Tibet, but Bhutan has become more popular.
Yeah.
And I've been to Kilimanjaro once, and then I'm thinking to lead trip to Kilimanjaro. So
Nice.
yeah, those are the things been doing.
And also, you can take your kids too. That's what.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, we are encouraging. Like, I sent my daughter when she was 9 years old with a high school group from Montana. It was just like all of a sudden, like she wanted to go, and I was hesitant, but like she said she can do it. But I'm glad that she did. So I think I always say American kids are one of the blessed kids compared to, and she have learned a lot. So that's why I try to take kids at least every other year
Yeah.
and then experience everything there. So they can do national park. They can do so many things like project, like they can visit the orphanage, and they learn so much about it. And hiking, the small hills and all. They can do like a family reunion too. We had friends who went together, and then husband they went hiking, and then wife they came a little later, and then just had the city tour, took kids around. There's like so many things to see.
Yeah, no, I know for sure, like me and my family and my son, we would love to make it out on one of these expeditions with you in the not too far future. What is your favorite part about being, in essence, like a tour guide?
Well, mostly meeting with people, different people. I mean, so many different lives come along and experience and all these things. And then other part is the nature. Like, I just have this feeling that, you go to bed here on a really nice pad, comfortable pad, and you wake up in the morning, you get ache everywhere, like your leg is not moving quick but you go on a hike or camping and you sleep on this like half-inch pad, and the next morning you wake up and you're ready to go for like 10 miles, right? It's just so much energy, and you don't really eat anything or drink not much of nutrition. Here at the home you drink like protein bar and all these things, but you're still struggling. And I just have this really kind of different power of nature, and I just love those movies.
Yeah. So on the mountain, with regards to Mount Everest, I know it keeps growing in popularity, as you were talking about. It seems like with advancement of technology and weather forecasting, more people who attempt Mount Everest are actually reaching this summit. Am I correct in that assumption?
Right, the summit rate is like huge increase now. Like I think like 80% of people able to get on a summit on each expedition, and if as long as they are healthy and they don't have any health issues, I think most people have a 90% chance of summit.
Now, people are still dying.
Right.
And often some years, especially if there's a unpredicted storm or an avalanche, do you have any idea approximately how many people die out of the people who attempt?
Well, I think it's a depend on a year, but if you go back and look all these climbers and death rate, I think almost like 10%.
Okay, so even though a lot more people are making it, it's still very dangerous to attempt Mount Everest.
Right. I mean, more people climbing, more people die. So it's the ratio is still going. I think this year maybe 300 people climbed, 17 people killed. So the ratio is going up and down, and it's every year different. I mean, some years like 15, 16 people killed on a one spot. So that's a huge, tragedy. But mostly one, two, here and there, add up to 5, 10 people every year.
And when you're on the mountain, is it, while you're actually on the journey, is it fun, or what's the emotion or the mind state? Is it like survival, or what goes through your mind when you're on the mountain?
Well, there are a few things that you can think of. Like one is your dream, like what actually your goal on Everest. So you can think that and try to kill your time and walk and move around. And most of the time people are with a friend, so they talk all kind of nonsense and try to pass their time or go. But it's overally, like my experience, like sometimes being by myself, is you go to this like top of the mountain and you look down and everything is below, like you feel like you're the only one survivor there, right? I'm above the cloud and all these things. So you do feel proud, I mean, at the point, and then that's kind of disappear once you need to struggle and come down. But
Yeah.
it's I mean, every moment is a little just slightly different. I mean,
Yeah.
it's people have an emotion and bad and good, and some people get to the summit of Mount Everest and they start crying because this is all their dreams and they're fulfilled, right? They get this huge emotion, and some people be really happy. I think it's mostly depend on the people's nature, but mostly for me, it's I just enjoy just seeing the cloud and mountains and
Yeah.
surroundings. Yeah.
Are there any funny moments or any things that you can remember about like just being on the mountain? It sounds like you and your Sherpa friends sometimes try to joke around to pass the time. It sounds like, you know, the relationship you have with your wife.
No, it's the base camp. The climbing moment is a little harder because you have to climb, you have to carry load and all these things. But spending time at the base camp is one of the best because you make the joke with the friends, and there will be a little bit of drink going on and playing card, and it's everybody is so happy and try to make this expedition successful. There is not much of ego going on, and each other is like so
very
helpful.
friendly and
Yeah.
just have parties every night.
Right.
Yeah, because part of like the acclimatization process before you can actually attempt a summit is you just have to spend a lot of time at higher elevations.
Yeah, that's mostly at the base camp. So it end up like staying base camp is much longer time than any other camp during that time. But it's so much fun. It's actually, you know, it's interestingly, it's all these boys or men that came out of every different places, and they make all the different jokes and talk, you know.
Do you ever play pranks on each other at base camp?
They do, yeah.
Give me an example of like
do.
a prank that you might play at each other.
You know, they do like they try to scare each other at the night. You know, there are lots of them talking about the ghost and these things, and they try to move their tent and try to shake it and put a rock in their bed, or so all kind of stupid things like, or
Make sound outside.
make sound, and there are even more worse stupid things some of them are gonna do, but you know.
Yeah. So here's another question, and as we come to the conclusion, do you think there's any chance that either of you will ever try to summit Mount Everest again?
I don't know about
my wife, but I kind of feel like if my kids are out on their own, I may go give a try.
Yeah.
We don't try to encourage them, but we just leave them like whatever they want to do, it's up to them. But so that's why like we always say it's not easy, but if they want to climb in future, we will not stop them from climbing. That's what. But we don't want to encourage them in this.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I feel like maybe, you know, what the heck, let's go do something different. I last, I think 2-3 years back, I got an opportunity to climb Choyu, and I asked her, and she said no. But
Because I always think that time we were not married and we don't have kids.
Yeah.
But now at least you have a family. Something happens, then it's so
right,
many-
emotion is more, because even I go hike here or do something little climbing, I do think about the family and so that does makes a little difference.
And it seems like both of you have a deep spiritual connection with the mountain. How has that evolved over your life, and how would you explain your spiritual connection to Mount Everest?
We always, we as a Nepali, like mostly Sherpas, they always worship Everest as a goddess. So before we climb and all, we always do puja, everything. So even at home now, we do like always, like sometimes my kids ask, Mom, what religion are we? And I always say, I was brought up Hindu, Papa was brought up Buddhist, but we have both shrine in our house and we respect each other. We celebrate Losar, we celebrate Dasai, and we even go to church with our friends whenever they invite. So it's just something like religion. I think as a whole, we should say we have to respect each other, no matter like what religion. Religion does really doesn't matter, but at least you respect each other. Like respect whatever they believe in.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think Everest is everything for me. God or religion, anything that I would say, because it changed my life in a whole. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if there is no Everest, I wouldn't get married to Moni,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have this beautiful family, and I wouldn't able to make my name out there. I think as no one will know me, and so basically, if I go back there and I see Everest, I pray. Well, thank you so much for giving me all these things. You know that. So I don't really go to temples or in front of the God and pray that what I need or what I want. You know, I say, well, it's a God, and everybody's praying.
Thank
okay.
you every day
Thank
for
you.
our like
But
beautiful family.
The Everest makes more true God for me because it's changed so many people's life out there, and it's especially for me. I mean, it's a huge blessing from Everest.
Yeah.
Without Everest, I don't think we'll get married or we'll have family.
Maybe
I'll be in the U.S. You know.
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah. I tried to come to U.S. like 4 times before climbing Everest. They didn't give me a visa.
Yeah.
So after climbing Everest, they gave me a visa to come
Yeah.
here. So it's a huge.
So in conclusion, I just wanted to give each of you an opportunity to just share your thoughts about anything else we might not have talked about, but also to talk about how you feel the mountain has changed you in a positive way. And I'll let you each kind of end on that note.
Well, I miss, you know, I kind of like really follow up all the mountain activities and what happened over there, and I kind of pray or tell friends to be careful and climb safely. And as I said, that I'm gonna go back and climb mountain again if my kids are grown up and gone out of home and I don't have responsibilities. And then other than that, I mean, so we deeply appreciate the natures and beauty of the mountain, or not only mountain, but anywhere. And
Yeah.
then maybe try to keep safe that. So that's it.
Yeah, Everest have changed my life. Like I met him because like in that climb, I've learned so many things and I met so many good friends till now. And I know the culture most of the time because I was not that much familiar with all this cultural stuff and all. And it gave us everything, I think.
Yeah. And I want to thank you too. I know on a personal note, like we've known each other for almost a decade now, and I've really respected how you give back to your community back home in Nepal. You take the best of Ann Arbor here, whatever resources, you're involved with a number of projects to make life better for many people back in your home country and in the region. So I just want to thank you for being such a good person and really inspiring me. You know, as I go through as an immigration lawyer, I've been fascinated with the stories, talking to you over the years. And I'm very interested in heading over to that region. For people who may be watching this, is there a phone number or a website that they could go to if they want to participate on one of these excursions or expeditions in Nepal?
Yeah, they can go to www.imperialexpedition.com or call me myself on 303-834-5512, or they can come visit here at the 218 South Main Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan, at Himalayan Bazaar, and ask anyone here.
Yeah, and so if maybe you don't have ambition or the desire to summit Mount Everest, at least come down to the Himalayan Bazaar in Main Street here in downtown Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Well, thank you too for your time
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
and you say namaste, right?
Namaste. Yeah.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.